All right, Max, we do have some coaching hires. There are 3 new head coaches in the state of Texas.
These are things that happen.
Or at least new at their respective schools.
Right.
2 new ones, one guy who moved in the state. Let's start, and as a result, they are building their staffs. We've talked a little bit about how Baylor has brought on assistant coaches who are Texas high school football coaches in a very savvy move to shore up his recruiting kind of shortfalls.
Yeah.
They've done a great job hiring Joey McGuire at Cedar Hill, David Wetzel from San Antonio Reagan, Sean Bell from Round Rock Cedar Ridge.
Awesome hires.
All very good hires. So now they're continuing to fill out their staffs, and actually in the past week, we've now got 4 new offensive coordinators for 3 schools.
Yes.
Let's start with the one that came down, I believe it was either yesterday. We started hearing
yesterday.
rumblings
Early
about
yesterday.
it Monday. But
yeah, my rumblings,
yes.
but yeah.
The new offensive coordinator at Texas, the University of Texas, is Tim Beck. And Tim Beck is a guy that you probably know either for a hyper-local reason or for a national reason.
Right.
You either know him as the former head coach of your Carrollton R.L. Turner Lions or your Mansfield Summit Jaguars.
Yeah.
Or because he's a former Texas high school football coach, he was super successful at both of those programs. He helped turn R.L. Turner into an unreasonable winner. And then he goes on and he bounces around a few different places, but he ends up at Ohio State, where basically when Tom Herman got hired away by Houston, remember Tom Herman was the Ohio State offensive coordinator, then they said, okay, well, Tim Beck, you're the next man up. And so Tim Beck was their offensive coordinator, and he is a 2-time Broyles Award finalist. He's a guy who, you've seen Ohio State, you've seen their offense. Beyond that, having those recruiting ties, I think, are going to endear him to Texas high school football coaches. There's a lot to like here.
Yeah.
Now, Texas fans are never happy unless they're upset. And
Ohio State fans aren't helping.
No.
Because they're happy to see him go.
They are. So Ohio State fans are basically like, oh, well, good riddance. Good riddance. Hey, this guy can't coach offense. Now, I don't know why people from Ohio sound like they're from like Louisiana, or Mississippi, but apparently they do.
Okay.
In any case, the reason he's going to be coaching quarterbacks, and he's going to run Tom Herman's scheme.
Right.
And the reason that Ohio State fans are like, oh, good riddance, is that their offense was hot garbage in the national semifinal.
Yeah. And it wasn't as good in general. And their offense Tom Herman
took a step back.
Right.
I think it would say it took a step back. And I feel like there are Texas fans who are wringing their hands, who are like, "Oh, well, is this guy actually any good? Is this can he do this?" There's 2 things that I want to point out. One, Ohio State's offense was pretty good this year. Our friends at Football Outsiders, according to their S&P Plus ranking, rank them 23rd in the nation.
Pretty good.
Offensively.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. 3rd rushing.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Especially if you want to continue to run the style of offense that Tom Herman ran, which is, I know that there was a lot of emphasis put on Greg Ward Jr., but really his offense is a run-first offense.
Right.
Let's not get it twisted. That's a run-first offense. So, first of all, their offense is pretty good.
Yeah.
Second of all, let's also not act like Tim Beck is going to have just autonomous power.
Carte blanche.
Yeah. Autonomous power.
With no input from Tom Herman.
Right.
Clearly they work well together as a team.
Yes.
Because they did before.
So if you don't, there is one reason to not like the Tim Beck hire, and that is if you don't like Tom Herman.
Right.
If you looked at Texas hiring Tom Herman, you're like, ooh, bad move.
Someone said was like Strong and Sean Watson. I'm like, how is that? No.
That is an absolutely insane comparison. That's an absolutely insane comparison. So for me, I think that there's reason. Now look, this could blow up in their face.
Sure.
Everything could blow up in their face.
But at its face, there's no reason.
No, there's no. This is such. I'm gonna win some friends with this comment. This is such a Texas thing to do.
Yeah.
Is to see something that is like on its face pretty good.
Yeah.
I think there's not a whole lot to complain
And be
about,
like-
and find something to complain about. This is such a Texas thing to do, guys. Chill out. You got a good coach. You got a good offensive coordinator. Just deal with it.
Not
Deal
remotely.
with it. I don't know.
Not remotely
So there's that.
concerned. Yeah.
Baylor, our DCTF Live's own Matt Rule, has made his selections for offensive coordinators, and it's two guys with ties to Oregon, which is interesting in that they have hired Matt Lubick and Jeff Nixon. Jeff Nixon is a former 49ers assistant under Chip Kelly, who goes back with Chip Kelly back to Oregon. Matt Lubick is the Matt Lubick basically had taken another job. This is kind of interesting. Matt Lubick had taken the job at Ole Miss to be their wide receivers coach.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then they're like, apparently the word is that they doubled his salary.
Yeah.
Which, boy, money talks and BS walks. And
Yeah.
if you want
sure.
any more comparison there, and I'm sure that Matt Lubick, I don't know the guy, but I'm sure that he will say, oh, well, I just felt Baylor was the right choice and I really want to be an offensive coordinator. Oh, okay. So you're telling me that if they had offered you the same money, you would have stayed at Ole Miss.
Right.
No. I mean, come on, guys. This is about money. And they offered him a lot of money to come be their co-offensive
Like
coordinator.
most of us, he would have taken. I mean, come on.
So this is really interesting. So he was, before he took the job at Ole Miss, 2 weeks before that, he was Oregon's offensive coordinator. And Oregon, even though they had a down year, in fact, a bad year, they actually had a pretty solid offense.
Yeah.
Again, to go back to our friends at Football Outsiders, they ranked 20th offensively.
Yeah.
And
Oregon's problems have been the defense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a sieve.
their problems have been defensively, but
and not finding a quarterback.
But overall, they've been pretty good offensively. You can't really put it on the offense. Has it been the number one juggernaut it was with Marcus Mariota? No.
Right.
But it's been very good. And so bringing in these guys, the one thing that I wonder is that if you look at what Matt Rule did at Temple, and we were talking about this, Matt Rule ran a very pro-style offense at Temple. This might be a way. I feel like this is going to meet in the middle somewhere.
You would think, right?
Is that Oregon? Here comes Jeff. Here comes Matt Lubick and Jeff Nixon, two guys who run the Chip Kelly style of offense, which again does run a lot, but it runs out of the shotgun. It runs a lot of zone read. It runs a lot of package plays, stuff like that. Doing that, that is distinctly different from what Temple was doing, which was very run first, very line it up, I formation, single back, run the ball. I feel like I'm very interested to see how this offense ends up taking shape, because obviously Matt Rule is going to have something to say about it, and I feel like he's not going to want to get away from what made him successful at Temple altogether. But this certainly goes in a more, I don't want to say progressive, because that would imply that his style of offense is regressive, which is not, but in a more 21st century.
I think it's more just a tacit acknowledgement of the talent level, right? At the lower at the non-Power 5 school, where you're trying to create consistency and build a power running game. Well, that's a lot easier with mid-level talent than it is to come up here and do the same and have the best. You could have the best running game, but you're going to need the best running backs and the best linemen. Well, that may not always be the case. So I think you have to make those offensive adjustments for personnel. You're going to get advantages in the skill position, and you need to learn how to harness those. So I think that's just an acknowledgement of we're at a different place now, and the only way we can win here is to do a little bit of everything. Right.
So there's that. Baylor now has two offensive coordinators from Oregon, which it'll be interesting to see. Two kind of Chip Kelly disciples.
It'll be fun.
And then Houston. Of course, Major Applewhite, the new coach at Houston. And they have made a hire. They have hired their offensive coordinator, the quarterback's coach from Mississippi State, Brian Johnson. There's a couple of interesting things about Brian Johnson. Well, one, obviously working under Dan Mullen, he's probably gained a little
Pretty good at offense.
He's pretty good at offense. He's probably gained a little bit of experience there. Two, he was Dak Prescott's coach for 2 years. So if you are a fan of Dak Prescott, I mean, here's a guy who I'm not going to say he's directly responsible for him, but here's a guy who obviously had a lot to do with his success at Mississippi State. There's that. And 3, he's 29.
Yeah.
He's younger than
you and me. Yeah.
So he is an extremely young.
Yeah.
This is now a very young staff between Major Applewhite, who's 36. Is that right?
I don't keep track of Major's age. I apologize.
38. Major's 38.
Still.
So 38.
Young staff.
29. This is a young staff. Interesting. Here's a guy who he was their play caller this past year. He was their play caller this year, and he's probably going to be in charge of trying to turn Kyle Allen, the presumed starter next year. I think there's no real doubt about that. Into what Dak Prescott was.
Look, at this level, I think when you go for the younger guys, I think that's the right move because you're trying to grab these guys before they blow up. You want to be the ones where they blow. You want them to blow up while they're with you.
Exactly. Exactly right. So those are the 4 new offensive coordinators in Texas for 3 different schools.